Hello everybody, welcome back. I took you outside with me. Today I am reviewing the Ritual Tarot by Tiera May. I did an unboxing on my channel. I've talked about this deck in videos and now I'm actually reviewing it because I've been working with it for a while. I'm going to try to answer the question, how does the deck read? So the Ritual Tarot. It's beautiful. It's a collage style deck. No titles. I've heard this deck described as neutral by friends. Now, I would say that there's a lot of earth energy in the deck, which is probably why I took you outside with me. And this is because of the gorgeous, beautiful photos of outside spaces. There are large mountains that you can see in the cards, big fields, waterfalls, lakes, forests. You know, the nature part of this deck is very abundant, and that's why I like it so much. That's probably the main thing that I like this deck so much, because it's a good mix between culture and nature. Now, with all this earth in here, at the same time, I see quite a bit of fire in it as well. I realize I purposefully highlight the Toth influences in this deck, the Toth aspects in this deck, because I would say most of the minor cards, the so-called number cards, obviously in this deck there are no numbers, but the so-called number cards, they remind me more of the Rider-Waite-Smith system, whereas the courts, there's a lot of Toth, I feel, and the majors as well, actually. It's just a mix of things. But anyway, I feel I highlight the Toth influences in this deck. It helps me read the deck in a more active, fiery way. It gets a little bit less sleepy in a sense, almost. And with that Toth influence in there, because it is in there, it makes it a more cosmic deck. Less of the earth alone and more cosmic, more spiritual, even bigger energy. And doing this, it kind of, or rather focusing on this, it slightly changes my way of reading and interpreting these cards. Now, as you probably know by now, I took a Toth break because I kept getting negative cards and negative messages, more importantly, in a time in my life where what I really needed was, sure, strong advice, but also mixed in with a bit of a hug or a bit of a kind of constructive criticism, and all I got was criticism, it felt like. It felt like I got a horrible outlook on situations. And it's weird, I know that we get the cards we need, but I wasn't in the right state of mind at that moment to get the message, and yeah, somehow I feel maybe something weird was up. So I didn't dismiss the messages at all, but I did find them a bit extreme in a way. And I uploaded a talk about it on Patreon in the after party for the month of August. So if you're interested, then you can check that out. So instead of reaching for Toth, which is what I'd been working with for a full month, I started reaching for the Ritual Tarot and set the Toth aside for a bit. And I would describe this deck as warm earth, which may sound strange, but I feel it makes sense in the way that it reads, in the way that it feels. Earth in the sense of outdoors, right? The world is large and we have so much to explore. And it's almost a poetic view on the cards, I'd say. And it's warm because, especially in the majors and courts, there's a lot of fire, reminiscent of Toth. And this combination makes for a bit of a healing type of experience to me. Kind of a composed energy, intuitive and balanced. And I'm not saying the other elements aren't present, that they're not coming through. They do, but warm earth makes sense to me to describe these cards in the way that they've been reading. And here's another thing. Even though I don't think of my practice as centered around feeling safe. This deck feels safe and it's good. And even though it's safe and comfortable almost, it is still balanced and confronting when needed. Now, I've already said there are no titles, there's no indication except for the image itself of what this deck actually is. It just happened this way. It already happened with the unboxing. Looking at the chords, I tend to go king, queen, knight, and then princess. Simply because they look like princesses to me, and page doesn't feel right. I kind of mix up different systems almost, and I often, but not always, change some or switch between systems when naming the cards, because obviously no titles makes for a bit more freedom and you can just basically name what you see in the card, right? So I tend to go magus instead of magician or instead of battleur. I like to say priestess instead of high priestess. But then there's the Hierophant, or the Pope, which I call ancestor. It just makes more sense with the image, and that came from the Wildwood Tarot, which is a deck I really like as well. I prefer Aeon to Judgment, although I do still see both. And then I go Justice, Strength, because it just seems more like strength to me rather than lust, this card. And Temperance, Hanged One. Yeah, those are just some titles that I naturally use, you could say. I mean, this looks like strength, right? And sure, this is a magician, but Magus is just even more cosmic in a sense. You can see him do the work outside of himself here. Now also I will often change the suit names since we're free in that as well. Now obviously there's this guidebook where Tiera May has made the titles that just simply suit the deck. But again, you know, a tarot deck, it has to suit you, and so I don't feel I'm changing anything. I feel no titles means you can call it whatever you like. You can do vessels instead of cups, or just even maybe go just the elements, you know. Very free. But I usually go wands, swords, cups, pentacles, or coins, depending on what system I'm reading. But usually the other ones, they kind of stay the same in sense. Pentacles or discs, you know what I mean. So that's kind of what I do. So what I do here is cups stays the same. Then there's pentacles, coins, discs, that's all allowed here. And then finally, I changed the swords to daggers just because that's what I'm seeing in this deck. They look more like daggers. Beloved 10 of swords here, or 10 of daggers, right? And then instead of wands, which, you know, there's nothing wrong with those suit names, obviously not. But instead of wands, I tend to see spears, which I really like. I don't always do that, but to me, that naming of the suits makes sense with the image. And also, I really especially like spears for wands because you launch your energy into what lays in front of you, and I see that as very powerful. I like the history and different cultures we see in the statues that are used in this deck. They don't read like statues. It reads very much alive. To me, these are quite dynamic courts, which I really, really love. I'm really happy about that. I see a lot of movement in the court cards. Now, don't forget, all these statues are actual statues that exist, and they were made one day, and they are of people, of kings and queens or gods, all from different cultures across the globe and from different time periods. There are stories, legends, myths intertwined in them, yet it's up to the reader to use that in the interpretation. These people depicted feel very much real. The main thing that's speaking to me right now in this deck is that feeling of the vastness of the world. I think I just miss certain views. It's been a while since I've been to Corsica, for instance. It's been a while since I've actually experienced a mountain. And out here we get a lot of flat land, which is obviously what les Pays-Bas literally means. The lowlands, the flatlands. Doesn't mean it's not beautiful, it's just very flat. That's another thing. These images, I realized, make me very much nostalgic. In a good way, though. But yeah, they make me nostalgic. A funny thing, or a beautiful thing rather, I've heard collage referred to as visual poetry, and I really do think that that's what we're getting here. That's the result of this deck. That's what we got. It shows the beauty of the world and the beauty in the world and the composition of these different elements in the cards. They give us the hidden potential. The hidden potential of all of these elements that in this deck somehow magically, beautifully came together. And I must say, meaning comes through really easily in these cards. Now, I consider this deck as fairly busy. It's not a minimalist deck. Ah, dragonfly. But this doesn't make for an overwhelming feeling. Rather, I feel it calms me down because I make an effort to really sit with the card and I take the time to discover all the details in this new artwork. Now, overall, to me, this is a beautiful, warm, and balanced tarot deck. And I consider this deck a hidden gem in tarot world. It's right in the middle of art and tarot. It's an out of control art project and a really good, helpful, constructive read. Not clearly tied to any specific tarot tradition, these cards rely on image only. And I mean, just look at the treasure we got. It's very special. I certainly hope you enjoyed this review and that this was, I mean, nobody suggested this video, but that it was somehow a little bit what you expected out of a review. If there are any questions, feel free to ask them. I know I didn't get into the typical cardstock, how it shuffles, all that crap, and the packaging, if the backs are fully reversible or not. If you want to know that, then I suggest checking my unboxing, or, well, why not ask underneath this video? I would answer the question. But, you know, if you want to know more about just the magic of these cards, how the readings feel, then that is also very, very welcome. And all I'm trying to say is, I love this deck. It reads beautifully, and I'm glad it's in my collection because it really feels like this deck was able to basically catch me in a difficult time in my life. So there you go. If you like this video, I will link another one in the screen that you will probably like as well. And oh yeah, let's do the game. Fun. Hippopotamus. This is another word that is difficult to spell, in my opinion, but that is not a camel. That is a hippopotamus. There's a camel down there. So, hippopotamus, let's see what you do with that word. Oh yeah, for the people who don't know, who are out of the loop, totally fine. In my rambly videos, I ask for people to comment one word in this case hippopotamus, in case you've made it all the way to the end. So if you have something to share, try to include this word in your comment if that's fun to you. It's fun for me. And if you have nothing to share, then at least let me know you've made it this far and comment that special word of the day. I thank you so much for being here, and I will see you all next week. Have a good weekend. Bye.